we hand over back to the studio. So some of you, I mean, we've been here, you've been looking down, you've been talking to party officials, the party is getting ready. We saw the traffic build up rather to Punglu before people are getting inside. What are your own takeaways from what you've seen, the organization and everything?
I think it's been, from the start, we've done some, barely 1 hour since we came here, but you would want to say this has been a well-structured one.
Yes.
You don't see a lot of people here, but outside the stadium there are a lot of people. But what they're doing is that if you don't have accreditation, it's difficult. I mean, when we were entering, you had a policeman ask someone, "Where's your accreditation?" Even though, and then he was telling them, even if you are a party member, but unless you have accreditation before you come here. And when you come here, you look at the indications they've done on all the seats. It tells you that, I mean, they've learned lessons from over the years of organizing things like this. So things look like well structured from the beginning. We hope that it goes throughout the day. And if you look at it too, I'm told that those will be speaking. So if you look at the podium, no one will be sitting on the podium.
Okay,
that's what we've been told. All of them will be sitting at the VIP section. But for those who will be speaking, they will be held up in a room behind the podium. So you don't need to sit there, you'll be there, and then when they mention your name, you just climb up. So that's what I've been told. So it looks like they've decided that they don't want anybody within the perimeter. All of us will be outside there and monitoring whatever goes on the podium there. So that's a bit of what we do know. If you go up there, you'll see that they've indicated where the regional executives will sit, where the constituency executives will sit, where the MPs, former parliamentary candidates will sit. So it's from what we've seen so far, you want to give them a thumbs up for all they've done here.
I mean, before we get back to Evans and our colleagues in the studio, this is a big event for the party. Because this is the first time the party is regrouping in this nature, coming together to take decisions on the way forward for the party following that defeat in 2024. And 2028 is such a big event for the party. There are a couple of mumblings within the party about top-down, down-up, and all these issues. Some of them perhaps will be discussed here as we go into the 2024 election. What do you think the party should be looking at in terms of bringing itself together, in terms of the big issue they have to discuss towards 2024, 2028?
If you listen to the party closely, they tend to portray that when it comes to the flag bearer election, it's a done deal. They've sealed it. They are not going to change it. So I think now they need to focus on how do you get the entire party to buy into the fact that we are going to elect our flag bearer first before we come and do, the police station executives, the electoral area coordinators. Even that will be based on the agreement that will be reached there, because now they have an electoral area coordinator, but they now want to do electoral area coordinator. So it will be based on what they do here. But I'm saying that if you listen to the party and the fact that they've decided that we are going to do the flag bearer election, then of course they need to use this opportunity to convince the grassroots that we've taken the best of decisions in saying that let's do a top-down approach. But even when we do the top, we'll make sure every voice is represented when it comes to the grassroots. I've seen that we've been doing
Fifi Boafo is a former spokesperson for Cocoa Board. He also spoke for the running mate for the party in the 2024 election, Dr. Matthew Poku Prempe. Fifi, it's good to have you here. I mean, you've seen the arrangement here. This is a big event for the party. What are your own expectations for today?
Well, today I'm here as a member of the media and a communication team for the planning of this conference. I think so far, the fact that the media, you are here and you've started your work, it means our work is ongoing.
I mean, in terms of I was telling my colleague that this is the first time the party is coming together like this since 2024 when you defeated in that election. This is big for you. You're considering very important matters going into the next election, which may define the future of your party. What are your own expectations in terms of some of the conversations that are having, and how do you think you can bring together the base of your party, everyone united for the task ahead?
So, after the last year's election and the results that came out, there were a lot of people who were of the view that, well, the MPP is very demoralized. The MPP feels that, well, they've been rejected. And then the vote was not something we were expecting. So clearly, for party members across the country to still have the belief that, yes, we may have been defeated in the last election, but then we are still in a position to reorganize ourselves, bounce back strongly, for which reason you have party members across the country traveling to Accra today to make a decision that will help in reorganizing ourselves as a political party is an indication that yes, we may be down, but we are not out. We are organizing ourselves and we shall bounce back stronger and better. I remember yesterday when we were here and we were organizing, one person passed a comment and said, well, when he was coming here, he felt that, wow, this is a party that lost. Look at our numbers in parliament. Look at our presidential vote. So it was something to him. Well, he was not expecting to see any enthusiasm among the people who were coming here. But when he got here and saw the enthusiasm, he realized that, well, maybe something went wrong. But clearly, these are people who are determined to right the wrongs.
But I mean, back to the critical things you think this, occasion should present to your party in terms of trying to rally every member across. What do you think should be the critical point that the party must look at today?
Well, everyone who is coming here, I think there's one thing you can find in the theme, is that we are building the party collectively. We are not building the party because it is for a section of the party members, but we are building the party that will be accepted. We are building the party that will galvanize everyone. We are building the party where every Ghanaian will consider that yes, this is the way to go. This is the political party that would ensure that the needs and aspirations of the people are met. The needs and aspirations of the people are carried along. So that is the expectation. So everyone who is coming here is coming here with the understanding that as members of the New Patriotic Party, there's values that brings us along. There are values that carries us along. And those values are the values we are supposed to, or we are expected to allow or to guide our decision making, to guide us in whatever we are doing here today, such that by the time we are done with this conference, everyone will go home energized and then have at the back of their minds that we've taken a decision that will help us take the party forward and ensure that in the next 4 years, we'll come back stronger than we did in the previous election.
Thank you very much, Ifibo, for getting to speak to a couple more party people who are here. And the place is beginning to fill up because if you look at the VIP, a couple more people are now coming in there. And we expect that any moment from now, the party supporters who've been housed and the delegates who've been housed in the hostels around and other places will now all come in and then take their seats. If you look at the top, they've been marked, they've designated places for Ashanti region, Eastern region, and all the 16 regions where the delegates will be coming from, and then they will be expected to take their seats, and then ultimately the event will start. You heard from Nanabi about half an hour ago telling us that the expectation was that this event would have started at 8 o'clock a.m., but there have been a couple of challenges. They expect now that the conference will start at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. I've actually seen Joseph Osewusu at the very top. He is the chairman of the planning committee. He's been very busy trying to get this off the ground, trying to get this to go in a way that will also show that the party is ready. Brace, last one before we go. Listen, whatever the party does here, sends a message to the Ghanaian public. Those who are not delegates of the New Patriotic Party, maybe ordinary party supporters, and the other the Ghanaians sitting back and trying to think, has the NPP changed? Has the NPP improved? This organization alone, the kind of speeches they will hear, the kind of things they will hear big party members talk about, sends a certain signal. And really, the party should be taking care of that when Dr. Bawumia speaks or whoever speaks today. Their message must be in a way that it's not just to party members, but also to the generality of the Ghanaian public.
Exactly. If you look at the result of the last election, it tells you that a lot of people were not happy. I mean, look at the voter turnout. People who didn't even come to vote. That's also a voice to tell you we are not happy about what you did or what you've done. So the party should look at how it can package its message to then speak to the heart of these people to say, we've learned from our mistakes. We think that we can do better next time when you give us the opportunity. So I think those who will be speaking here must not only be looking at projecting their own ambitions over the goodwill of the entirety of the party. They should look at what will I say that will benefit the party in the long run, and not to deepen the sort of division within the party. Because today you're not looking at the MPP alone. You're looking at, as you said, how to sell a brand that will be acceptable by the people of the country. Because after today, a lot of people will be reading meanings into it. is this a party that is ready to govern if we give them the opportunity? And because of that, you need to be guided by the expectations of the people and say that, well, we are ready to govern if you give us the opportunity. So I expect to, I'm waiting to hear what they will say. But I think that they, as a party, should be guided by how they will be seen by the people of Ghana after today.
Coming into today, there were a couple of issues that came up. For instance, President Akufo, former President Akufo, talking about how he had been sidelined. And later we got to know that he had actually written to the party asking for the postponement of this conference because he will not be around and he wanted to attend in person. We've seen Nana Kumia explain why the party could not accede to that request because of the logistical nightmare it would have occasioned. And so we don't expect former President Akufo to be here.
Yes.
We've also seen a statement from the office of former President Akufo-Addo, who we also understand has also been out of the country. His officer said that he has not made any request for the postponement of this event, but he will not be here. Someone else will read a goodwill message from him. So the most successful persons within the party, the MPP has governed for a total of 16 years between these two men. President Akufo, 8 years, and then President Akufo-Addo for 8 years. These are the two persons who have governed, led the party to victory. They are not going to be here. And President Akufo himself has expressed certain misgivings about certain things. Do you think that may cast a shadow on this, or do you think the MPP, being such a big party, will always find a way to paper over such cracks?
I listened to that interview between Evans Mensah and Katie Hammond, who says he was part of the team that met President Akufo to try and explain things to him. And if you listen to Katie, even though he wasn't explicit on the sort of agreement that was made, because he was telling Evans that he was sent by the executive and he needs to report to them. So if you listen to him, it looks like they've been able to probably get the old man to understand why they need to do what they are doing. Jose Wusu also explained that if you look, you mentioned earlier, the preparations they've done. In fact, if they postpone, they also brought some impediment that could probably hinder the successful organization of this. They said, next week, the Premier League is starting. And therefore, when it starts, getting a venue like this will be difficult.
Even getting a place to sleep, UPSA may have reopened. Why are you going to house your delegates?
So they said, I heard yesterday, Haruna Mohammed explained that the two leaders have agreed to join via virtual means. So, as I said, it depends on how they handle it today. So even though the two big men will not be here, but it depends on how the party itself is able to communicate it, and also if we see the big men joining virtually, what they will say. Because as I say, every message that is given here today, at the core of it, should go to uniting the base of the party. Because as we saw, and as we've heard, there is clear divisions at the base. And therefore, whatever speech that will go out today should touch the heart of the people there to tell them, we are one. And we want to come out as a party that is an alternative government in waiting. If you don't portray that to the Ghanaian people, of course, the NDC already is showing some kind of, performance that is rallying people together. So if you don't come together and portray yourself as someone who can do better than them, then you're digging your own grave. So I expect that the party will know this and use today as an avenue to say that even though the two big men are not here, but we are so united because they've joined us virtually, and we are going out of here as a united entity to wrestle for power.
Definitely, Blessed Evans and the West Team. That is the situation here at the University of Ghana Sports Stadium. When you go out there, the picture in here is so, contradictory in terms of each other. There's a crowd out there, the traffic situation right out there, Okonglo traffic cloud, the people trying to get in, car parks and other things is such a major thing here. But people are now filtering in because if you don't have an accreditation, you perhaps have to call God to speak to the security officials to let you in. You're not getting in. It's such a well-organized situation outside, and when you get in, talking to party stalwarts who believe that this is going to start perhaps at 10 o'clock a.m. and conclude between 2 and 3 p.m. And that is the expectation here. Evans, we will get back to you in studio as we regroup here and speak to the party stalwarts who are making their way here to the University of Ghana Sports Stadium for the party's National Delegate Conference.
Kweku Asante and my colleagues Samuel Kujo Brace there at the University of Ghana Sports Stadium, Legon, where the NPP is holding its National Delegates Conference. The confirmation is now out. Former President John Akufo-Addo will not be there. Likewise, the former President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and Evans, the choice of the venue itself is creating some challenge for the NPP as of now. COVID spread on UG campus, now making it compulsory for all those who will be moving in now to at least have some face mask on. That will take away the chairs, right?
Well, I mean, I remember when we were going to that elections in 2020, we had COVID. It didn't do much to dampen the excitement, and the politics and gatherings like this have the way of just getting people excited. I saw the former health minister in his face mask, but extractively, the national organizer, I didn't see him in one, right? So that tells you already that it's going to be a challenge to do this. But also important to note that just a couple of days before this event, the University of Ghana lifted all restrictions as far as the COVID is concerned. So that tells you that this can be relaxed a bit for them to do what they have to do. But they have to get down to the business of reforming the party's constitution and its structures generally. And if you look at the proposals that have been put forward, the NPP have traveled this path before. It is actually interesting. A lot of the proposals I see, some of them it's almost sankofa. Let's go back. For example, the thing about abolishing the special electoral college. They bought a special electoral college after the 2007 Delegates Congress at the University of Ghana because of the huge numbers. Now that proposal is let's change that, let's throw it away because you want to open it up. And the kinds of people who are making the proposal are formidable individuals in the party. Mark Menu, Kwabena Japan, Adomako and Co, who are making this, now believe it isn't the right thing to do to have a so-called special electoral college of special individuals who then shortlist and then the rest go to the generality of the party. That for me is an interesting one. After a defeat like they suffered in 2024, they have to do something really dramatic if they want to win power. The NDC was there in 2016. They tried to do some internal readjustments. The obvious one they've done already is to hold the presidential primaries early. That is not part of the proposal for consideration. I know people say that a lot going into this. It's not going to be discussed at the place because the party executives, the general secretary was clear to me when I spoke to him. It's not a mandate of conference to make a decision on when you hold your presidential primary. It is a decision of the National Council, and they've taken the decision already, and they're going to do so. So that is a dead matter. It's settled. So it's going to happen next year. It is the reforms that fundamentally will expand the electoral college to make it a bit more democratic in the election of a presidential candidate for the party. For me, that is the most fundamental proposal, which means next year, January, when they go to the polls to elect a presidential candidate, it will be the first time that if this is adopted, they're going to have almost 700,000 people vote for this individual, whoever that person will emerge. And that, moving it from just over 200,000 delegates to almost 700,000 people, is a huge jump. Hopefully, they believe that will lead to the election of the right person. That those with the resources obviously will not be able, again, is the thinking, at least that's the theory, will not be able to influence and buy their way to the presidential candidate slot. But we know, yesterday I was in a meeting with Mark Menu, for example, and he was making a point. That the time when they changed the electoral college numbers, from at that time it was around 6,000 to 200,000 plus. The thinking then was, we want to stop vote buying, we want to stop people with resources from capturing the party at the very highest level. And they thought that would solve the problem because it was impossible to buy 200,000 people. It's been proving that assumption at the time, it was flawed because the candidates at all the levels are actually still investing a lot of resources in influencing the vote, even with the 200,000. Moving it to 700,000 almost won't stop that. Even in the national elections, parties do it. But I guess the most important benefit is that you open it up for a bit more representative elections, if you like, where more people can come into the fray in terms of making the decision, especially with the party in a position where they are now, a bit in disarray. Yeah. You need somebody who can unite the ranks. If you speak to the party folks, they all have a sense who that person should be. Some groups say one person is the most marketed, so go for the person. Others say the other person could unite, particularly the Ashanti region, more, so go for that person. Hopefully, those 700,000 people, if they adopt it today, will make a decision that will get a party back into power.
We're getting into the details as to what may happen to these candidates already jostling for the position. But Winston, your take on expanding the college?
Well, I mean, the conversation about votes buying, and Evans, you make that point, because I was actually at the 2009 conference, and I remember at the time when Elizabeth Ohene, for instance, got up to speak, I mean, when she was seated, when she made the point, at the time when the conversations were being made, that the party should consider, having, say, at every polling station, 5 people voting. Her point was that in the voting region where she had contested as a member of parliament in the whole West constituency, there were polling stations where she had 0. So how do you convince her that in that polling station there were MPP members when she had 0, for instance? So let me put it this way. No matter how you expand your electoral college, it would not do away with vote buying. But there's another issue here. Part of the NPP's problem is that people saw how they conducted their parliamentary primaries, and people saw how the delegates had a lot of things. Television, they're giving cloth, a lot of things, money. So when it was time for the people to vote, part of the apathy conversation is that there are people who said, go to the people whom you gave money to go and campaign for you and come and vote for you. So the feeling is that if the party expands, you'd have more people as part of the delegates. And so if there's anything, you have more people benefiting, and thus more people going to campaign. But that would also lead to the other point. Then in that case, how about saying that you would give access to everybody to go and vote? Because then you would have, because listen to this, there's something political parties don't learn much about. That's it. If the NPP decides today that there should be an expansion in the number of voters, and thus have decided there should be polling station elections, for instance, before the presidential primary, I bet you there will be some areas where there will be no elections, there will be selection. That's the fact. There wouldn't be any election, there will be selection. So the people there would decide, you, Blessed, you'll be that, Evans, you'll be that, Winston, you'll be that, you'll be that, and that's the end of it. So if that is the case, and areas where there are elections, they know the card-bearing members and members of the NPP. So there are those who've made the point that, how about you are ready to go and vote? And so you set a timeline and say, if you didn't have a card by this year, you cannot vote in this election. But also there are people like the likes of Joe Bedo, I don't see his name in there, he's not a proposer for me, but he said that, look, how about all card-bearing members show up at a place? Then all card-bearing members can show up in a constituency. Then you go. When you go, there's a ballot. So you pick. If you pick and you are expected to vote, you go into a room where you can go and vote. If you pick and you're not supposed to vote, you pass the next way and go out there. In that case, you don't even know, you're not aware whether you will be a delegate or not. And so people cannot even influence you. But also, even that one, people would say, oh, how about I try to influence a lot of people so that whoever goes there. But the moment it is decided that you are going to vote because you've picked yes, you don't have the choice to come back to engage whoever is contesting. But let me just put that aside because that's not on the table for discussion anyway. What would happen is that whether the NPP decides to expand or decides to maintain, the issue of vote buying would just not go away. Because what politicians have done over the period is just to wait for days like an election, gather a lot of money, go and pay, get elected, and then they'd move on. What I think the NPP must do...
Would it give them better outcomes, though?
It will.
I mean, in terms of whoever.
No, as I said, an expansion would actually have more people as delegates. So now you have more people. You see, the conversation is that during the parliamentary primaries, you go in there, say there are 2,000. I come from a place like Mpoho. In Mpoho, the delegates are not more than, they're not up to 500. So if you're coming from Mpoho, for instance, where you have voters of over 20,000, and you have delegates not more than 500, and these delegates go into a place and they go and they vote for you, and you're expected to, and they're expected to be the only ones to go and campaign or vote for you, then you have a problem. However, if you were to expand it to say 1,500, at least you then would say there are more people who have become beneficiaries of the delegate system who would be expected to go out there and champion your cause for you. So that in itself comes with a certain advantage. Because the reality is that today, the feeling is that people, just look forward to that day. I'm sure you may have heard, the commentary about some young secondary school students who were asked what they wanted to be, and they said they wanted to be delegates because they look forward to that day. The point you made, before 2007, Evans, the NPP actually had about 2,000 delegates. This is what they used to do in those days. They actually had every constituency, but bringing 10 people to come and vote in a national election.
So it's proportional?
No, every constituency, 10. Every constituency, 10. Then you have members of parliament, what they would show. So, but every constituency had 10 people showing up, then the regional national executive. So if you realize, for instance, Akufo-Addo had a little over 1,000 votes. Alan Chamachi had over 700 votes. Ali Maham had about 143. Osaf Mafo, 63. Dan Butch, I think 52. So if you look at that, it wasn't more than it wasn't up to 3,000.
Right.
That was the problem. And then they decided that let's go in there, make it over 100,000. 100,000 in 2010 when they voted, and Akufo-Addo had over 70,000 of that, about 79,000 of those votes winning eventually. So that's it for me. And whatever it is, there are its advantages.
Right. Let's talk about the two personalities, Nana Danko Akufo-Addo and John Agyekum Kufuor. The absence of these two, Evans, is that a big deal for the party?
I don't think so. It has symbolic value. I honestly don't think I actually think Akufo-Addo's absence is better for the party.
At this event?
At this event. If he was there, he would distract from the focus of the event. Because we'll focus
That's a very controversial one, by the way.
We'll definitely focus on him. And he is a reason, primarily, why the party is where it is. It'll be, the optics won't be great if he was here. I think the party actually is, I know he's away, but I wouldn't be surprised if somebody advised him just not to be in the just not to be in the jurisdiction. Because if he was in the jurisdiction, wasn't there, that in itself is controversial. Why is he not there when he's here?
Yeah.
But he is physically not able to be here because he's out of the country, and so good excuse to be away. The reason why many are upset still with Bawumia is primarily because of him. The fundamental reason why the party has collapsed is because of his leadership. Every party going into an election runs on, especially when you're in government, runs on the record
of the predecessor,
runs on the record of the president who was running affairs. He ran on his own record in 2004, in 2020, the 2020 elections. He ran on his own record. It was at the time that we saw that the party, this collapse started then. We saw it. I mean, they lost ground in parliament. They had the first time the hung parliament under his watch. Yeah. He himself lost a bit of votes. And then we've seen this catastrophe. So it's good that he isn't there for all the reasons I've said. As for the former president, John Agyekum Kufuor, it would have been better for him to be there because of the recent controversy, to show that the party obviously set up a 5-member committee to reach out to him.
And precisely when you're saying that you've been excluded,
exactly. Now there's the time to do it. But it's also important to then highlight one of the proposals for consideration today, which has to do with the role of the National Council of Elders. And I believe somebody like Akufo-Addo and John Agyekum Kufuor will be members of the National Council of Elders, right? They're trying to give them more say in the affairs of the party. And the proposal is fourfold. the suggestion is to give them a right to vote in all national elections, and I believe they should have that by now, not institutionalizing an annual review conference for them where they can review the affairs of the party. But I find this interesting. Quarterly meetings with the president. And one of the complaints you get from the Council of Elders, and of course we've seen General Akufo himself complain, is that they do not have access. They claim they've been sidelined. If you are in power, you then have, if this is adopted, and you have Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, for example, as a president, he will be obliged under the party's constitution on a quarterly basis to meet with the Council of Elders.
Just use the party as a vehicle
and get advice from them. Of course, he has a right to disregard it, but at least it's institutionalized. And then an advisory role to the flag bearer and input on the running mate. So if this is adopted today, going forward, you see the Council of Elders and the likes of Akufo and the Akufo-Addo himself now advising the flag bearer, but also having a very significant input in whoever he selects as a running mate. We also saw what happened with Bawumia, with the selection of the vice president. I think it was a disaster. The choice was a disaster. I mean, you don't have to look further than the outcome of the elections. We saw what happened in Ashanti. The primary reason why the running mate was elected was because we were told he could bring the Ashanti vote to the table. It didn't happen. Somebody needed to advise him, give him superior advice in the decision making. If this is adopted, you get to see a bit more of their view in there. The thinking is that if you're an elder, you have greater experience. You would have lived that path before, and so you bring all that to the table. Akufo selected the former vice president Aliu Mahama. He would have learned some lessons from there. You have Akufo-Addo himself going with would have learned, and you bring it to the table when you're making a decision. I think this is also very important.
Do you share the view that President Akufo-Addo is to blame, just as Evans is saying, for the woes of the party now?
When you heard Dr. Bawumia going around on the thank you tour, what did he say? He said that a lot of things may have affected the party, including arrogance of power. He has talked about the economic situation at the time, who was in charge. He was there with President Akufo-Addo. So, I mean, that is not in doubt. But look, I'll tell you one thing. DDEP, Domestic Debt Exchange Program, is enough to make any party lose an election in this country.
You don't play with people's money, is it?
You don't do that. And even how they communicated it was a problem. But you see, I'll tell you one thing. I mean, I was making the point earlier. Let's look at the NPP from, say, 1992. I want us to do this briefly and look at where the NPP found itself post-2008. And you would understand something. In 1992, the chairman of the NPP was B.J. Darocha, Evans Mensah.
Yeah.
Look at B.J. Darocha. Look at the party's flag bearer. The moment the party went into election 1992 and lost, the leader of the party automatically was who? B.J. Darocha.
Yeah.
But he was a leader before they went into the election. So that was not in doubt. In 1995, Peter Alajete became the leader of the NPP. Now, if you do not know, Peter Alajete in 1996 formed a committee, Evans, that they should investigate then flag bearer John Agyekum Kufuor. Peter Alajete, as chairman of the NPP and leader of the party, he wanted J.A. Kufuor investigated.
Yeah.
He was unhappy with certain things. In 1998, you had Samuel Odoi Sykes. Now, these were people, okay, who had some kind of, these were people that you just, we're not pushovers. You just don't say, oh, this guy is chairman and that's the end of it. Then you move into, so in 1998, Odoi Sykes leads the NPP as chairman into becoming, the governing party post-2000. I'm sure you have to cross over. Okay, so let me just make this the point. Now, by 2001, Haruna Seku had become chairman of the NPP. And you remember the famous, kickback story, even before that. But watch from B.J. Darocha, and Haruna Seku was actually minister under Buzia. Watch B.J. Darocha, watch Peter Alajete, watch Odwe Sykes, watch Haruna Seku, and then get to 2005. By 2005, what you had was Peter McMenu becoming the chairman of the NPP. But at that point in time, Evans and Blessed, you would see that the NPP, the NPP began to see these divisions of those who were pro-Akufo, pro-Akufo-Addo. And so in the build-up to the 2005 elections, for instance, there were camps in there. Now, that brought about the emergence of Akufo-Addo strongly in control of the NPP. Look, post-2004, you had a chairman of the NPP. You had a president who wielded a lot of power. So you'd say, okay, it looks like everything is on course. But it was also around that time the conversations were being had with the NPP that how about you look forward to how about you change the rules to have the president, once the party has a president in power, as the leader of the party. And that was vehemently opposed by the likes of, Dan Kweku Botwe. However, in 2007, by 2008, by 2009, when McMenu organized that National Delegates Conference to actually change the NPP's constitution to allow the polling stations to vote, Akufo-Addo had emerged as the de facto leader of the NPP. And it was so until just last year, or in 2023, when Bawumia was elected. Unfortunately for Bawumia, he did not have that kind of hold that Akufo-Addo had on the NPP for the last 16 years. He didn't have it. And once he didn't have it, you didn't expect him to actually pull the kind of swings that Akufo-Addo could do, strings that Akufo-Addo could do. And so I agree that, look, having been de facto leader, even though the party's constitution said that the party's chairman was supposed to be the leader, you interviewed this guy, what's his name, the former chairman, Freddie Billy Evans, on Top Story, when he said that, I remember in the build-up to the 2014 primaries, he said some laws are better disobeyed than adhered to. You remember, Evans?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And at that point, even though the party had said that, people shouldn't openly declare support, people had openly declared support for Akufo-Addo, and they said some rules were better disobeyed, violated, than actually adhered to. So if that one person is held on so much, what the NPP would seek to do now is also to try, and that's why they say they're going back to their core values. Yes. Is to try and get a chairman. But also, in trying to get a chairman, you need a chairman that wills control. So, look, Stephen Ntim, after several attempts, 2005, 2010, 2014...
a dream come true for him, isn't it?
The dream come true came at the wrong time.
Anyway.
It came at the wrong time for him when he could not perform the functions that were expected of him. Are you crossing over?
Yeah, clearly.
Okay.
We need to... Briefly...